Utgarde Pinnacle is the second Utgarde dungeon you're going to come across, and there's 4 more achievements in here that go towards your Glory of the Hero achievement, so you can get your Proto-Drake, and there's another rare mount drop in here as well. The first boss you're going to come across is Svala Sorrowgrave. She's got a Sinister Strike, which strikes the highest threat target, dealing physical damage. Cool Flames, where Svala summons flames from the braziers that hit players. Ritual of the Sword, which summons 3 ritual channelers and a sword, as well as teleporting and stunning a random player under the sword. After 25 seconds, the sword will drop and hit the player, dealing massive shadow damage in the form of a dot over 8 seconds. The ritual channelers paralyze the target and surround themselves in shadow, applying a dot to players that attack them and dealing shadow damage every 3 seconds for 21 seconds. This affects stacks. The tactics for this is, once the player's teleported to the middle, focus on quickly killing the ritual channelers. If you have lots of stacks already, consider backing off a little bit and allowing your party to finish the channelers off. Crucially though, don't let the sword drop on the stunned player. This will hurt a lot. Once the channelers are dead, the stunned player and the group members can move away from the sword and no damage will occur. Svala is in the air during this phase and will return once the sword has dropped to the floor. Rinse and repeat. The achievement, however, is to force Svala to kill a Scorched Hulk. There are 2 Hulks near Svala, one at the back of the room and one down the stairs nearby. The key information here is that the Scorched Hulk needs to die from the sacrifice. This means the Hulk needs to die whilst the debuff from sacrifice is still on the Hulk. It doesn't necessarily have to be the killing blow though. The easiest way to do this achievement is to grab a Hulk at the start of the fight, get it to around 9 to 10k health and do not DPS it anymore. Once the boss sacrifices you, carefully kill the adds to free the player, but have your tank move the Hulk under the sword. If done correctly, you can have the Hulk on the platform and the tank safe. Although, if the tank does get hit by it, just be prepared to put some heavy healing on him. Once the Hulk has the debuff on him, have everyone kill him as soon as possible. Ideally, he needs to die within 3 seconds of that sword hitting him. Congrats on your achievement. Secondly, you got Gortok Palhoof, who is optional, by the way. It's not uncommon for groups to regularly skip this boss because of the time it takes to kill him. Gortok has 4 mini-bosses that must be defeated in order to kill the boss itself. First of all, you got a Rhino that does Grievous Wound, which charges a random player dealing physical damage and applies a dot that lasts 15 seconds, or it's removed when the target is healed to full health. It's got Gore, which attacks the highest threat target and deals physical damage, and it applies an additional dot dealing damage every second for 6 seconds. It's got a Stomp, which just deals physical damage to all nearby players and stuns them for 2 seconds. But really, outside of the abilities, just tank and spank. There's nothing really too much to worry about with any of these mini-bosses. You got the Worgum, which has got a Mortal Wound, which mortally wounds the highest threat target, dealing physical damage and reducing healing received by 5% for 20 seconds, and this effect can stack 20 times. It's got an Enrage, where at low health the Worgum enrages, increasing his attack power by 100%. Again, just a tank and spank, just kill it before the received healing debuff gets too high. You got a massive Jawmonger, which has got an acid spit, which spits a ball of acid at the highest threat target, dealing nature damage and reducing armor for 20 seconds, stacking up to 50 times. It's got a Poison Breath, which is cleansable, by the way, and it's just a frontal poison, dealing nature damage and applying a poison to all players hit, dealing nature damage every 3 seconds for a whole minute. And it's got Acid Splatter, which just summons smaller worms to attack players. So just AoE the little worms down, don't stand in front of it, nuke it down. And finally, you got a Ravenous Furbolg, which has got Crazed, which increases movement speed by 100% and attacks players at random for 10 seconds. You got Terrifying Roar, which just fears all players within 10 yards for 5 seconds, and a Chain Lightning, which just bounces nature damage around up to 3 players. Just try not to be within 10 yards so you don't get feared. Try not to all stand on top of each other. Nuke the boss. And it's at this point where the boss will actually spawn. So now we've got Gortok Palhoof, which has got Withering Roar, where it deals physical damage to all players and lowers their maximum health, and it lasts 30 seconds and stacks 50 times. It's got Arcing Smash, which cleaves in front of the boss, dealing physical damage. And then it's got Impale, which just throws a spear at a random player, dealing physical damage and applying a dot, dealing damage every 3 seconds for 9 seconds. And the tactics are pretty easy. Because of Withering Roar, Gortok has got a soft Enrage style mechanic. This mechanic just ensures that you need to kill the boss as quickly as physically possible, focusing healing on the Impale targets and being sure no one but the tank is hit by the Arcing Smash. It's an easy fight, ultimately just a tank and spank. You've just got to spank it before your tank gets spanked. Now, Skardy the Ruthless is the most exciting one in here because it's not only got 2 achievements that you need, but it's also got a rare mount that drops. So phase 1 is a gauntlet. There's a freezing breath where Skardy will fly his dragon periodically down the gauntlet, leaving a frost breath on around half of the floor. It deals significant frost damage to all players in it. It's got Harpoon Launcher where in an effort to phase the boss, players must fire harpoons to kill Skardy's mount and bring her to the ground. You got adds in the form of the Harpooners, which have just got a throw where they throw a harpoon at the highest threat target. They've got a net which roots the highest threat target for a few seconds, and they can drop a harpoon when they die. You've got warriors, which have got a hamstring. They've got a strike, which just strikes the highest threat target for physical damage. And then you've got the witch doctors, which do a dispellable debuff, which is called shrink, which just shrinks the player, reducing stamina and strength for 2 minutes. And a shadow bolt, which just fires a shadow bolt at the highest threat target. The first phase is just all about ad management and avoiding that frost breath when the boss is flying through the gauntlet. The tank may not be able to pick up all of the ads just due to the amount of CC on them, so expect a little group damage. You need to kill the harpooners and loot the harpoons, and then when the boss is in range of the harpoon, where you'll get an announcement on the screen saying it's now in range of the guns, you fire your harpoons at it. The boss will then come down to the floor. In phase 2, the only thing that really needs to be worried about is Poison Spear and Whirlwind. So Whirlwind deals AoE physical damage for 10 seconds. During this phase, the boss is slowed by 50%. It is tauntable and disarmable. It's got a Crush, which slams the highest threat target, dealing physical damage and stunning them for 2 seconds. And then, as I said before, Poison Spear, which is cleansable, but it throws a Poison Spear at a random player, dealing physical damage and applying a poison, dealing nature damage every few seconds for 12 seconds. In phase 2, just avoid the Whirlwind. This does extreme physical damage, so allowing the boss to move slightly towards the target before taunting back to the tank and kiting, as well as disarming the boss, is very effective. The Poison Spear also does do a lot of damage, so if you've got a Poison Dispel, make sure you do it. If not, healers, you're going to have your work cut out for you. But again, just don't stand in that Whirlwind. Don't try and be cocky and get as much damage out as possible, because in low levels of gear at the start of the expansion, you'll probably die. The 2 achievements are to kill the boss within 3 minutes of starting the gauntlet and killing the mount, so Groth or Graf, whatever, the Drake, from 100 to 0 in 1 pass. There's a very easy way of getting both of these achievements at the same time. Start the gauntlet and gather the required harpoons, then run back in the previous room and restart the gauntlet. Once the event has reset, restarting the gauntlet will restart your timer, allowing you to run straight to the end and use the harpoons as soon as the boss is in range. This will give you maximum amount of time to defeat Scotte on the ground and will give you the 100 to 0 in 1 pass achievement. If for some reason that doesn't work, which it should, but if that didn't make it to live servers, then obviously just keep killing the mobs, get all the harpoons that you need, and then you need to make sure you shoot her down in one go, and then probably heroism on the boss. The final boss, which I've had people kill me on so many times, King Yimmeron. It's not a hard boss, but it is very misunderstood. He has 3 normal abilities and is granted an additional ability every 20% of his health. The abilities that he's got all the time is Bane, which is dispellable. This effect deals damage to all players in 10 yards whenever the King Yimmeron takes damage with this buff active. He's got a Dark Slash, which deals damage equal to half of his target's current health. Fetid Rot, which is cleansable and affects the highest threat target with Fetid Rot, inflicting nature damage every 3 seconds and reducing their healing received by 25%. And now the King's abilities, where he can only have 1 active at a time. Every time he's about to get a new ability, you'll know about it because he'll stun all players every 20% to choose the new Fallen King ability. The first one could be Spirit Burst, which allows King Yimmeron to unleash a burst of energy dealing damage to all players. He gets Summon Spirit Font, which allows King Yimmeron to summon a Spirit Font that will deal damage to a random player every second. He gets Spirit Strike, which allows him to strike the tank, dealing physical damage and increasing physical damage taken for 10 seconds. And Wither, which is a decurse, which you can get rid of, obviously, which allows King Yimmeron to summon 4 Avenging Spirits that attack random players, lowering their stats by 2% for 10 seconds. This stacks 50 times. So for the tactics, this fight is about recognising which mechanics are currently active, as they may change the fight. Bane does significant damage, and if you continue damaging through, it will likely kill off your group. A Purge is fantastic here. If you see the boss timer for Bane getting close, stop damage. Wait for the buff, get rid of it, and then carry on. Dark Slash will chunk the tanks, removing half of their current health, so be ready to spot heal that as quick as possible. Spirit Fount does extreme damage to random players, so will require high healing, especially if at the same time as any Bane damage. Spirit Strike can ramp up the tank damage, and the Avenging Spirits can also be pretty frustrating. But ultimately, just get rid of Bane as soon as it's on and make sure you stop DPS just before it, and big hills. For the achievement, you need to kill him without anyone taking damage from Bane. It's a very simple achievement made more difficult by players who have a lack of understanding of the fight. There's two options to deal with this. Do no direct damage to King Yimeron while Bane is active, so using an add-on like Deadly Boss Mods will tell you when Bane's due to cast and just stop before and during. Or secondly, stop DPS while Bane is being cast and allow the buff to be purged. Warriors cannot shield slam this to purge, it will trigger an instant of Bane damage. Either way, keep an eye out for Bane being cast, stop all damage until the buff's gone, then continue to kill the boss. You'll likely see Bane multiple times during one boss fight. And that's it, that's Utgarde Pinnacle. I think there's only 2, maybe 3 more dungeons left to go. Be sure to like and subscribe. Roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes. Everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos because you get a nice icon next to your name. And you get access to members-only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.